for now, and then you'll have to click on, just click out of it, and then click
Skip for now.
skip for now, and then click it out of there.
Okay. And there's our clicker.
Yep, and I think it's the right button. You might have to start it here. So if you go into your slideshow, you may have to start it here. For some reason, it's
Turn
working.
off your screen.
Oh, yep.
Do you have any videos or sounds?
No, I was gonna put in funny video in, but
If you push the minimize stuff on the top, the little like one line.
That one.
Yep. You're good.
All right, we're gonna turn it over to Officer Barstad. Should be good. Yep.
I'm Tom Barson. I'm K-9 handler of the police department. This is Mark Lusing. He's a DCI agent.
It's department, I think we discussed that earlier today. We'll talk about that afterwards, why that is. We may or may not know each other.
Sorry, I talked fast, so I'll try to slow myself down and on my hand talk. Sorry. I hit him by accident, I swear.
All witnesses.
Okay. I'm a K-9 handler with the police department. I am partnered with K-9 Nico. I've been partnered with him for about 7 years now. When I got him, he was 18 months old. He came to us from the Netherlands. I got him from a vendor down in Alabama. Also, a little bit more about me. I'm a drug recognition expert, which also basically that means that I'm a step up above a regular officer in terms of DUI detection. I do drug detection as well. Do a bunch of tests to determine what drug category a person might be under the influence of, or categories. It actually turned out to be a very good program. I know Keith has called me out a few times, asked me, what do I think is going on? We've had ER doctors call me and say, hey, I'm seeing this, what do you think? I give my opinion. I'm no doctor, or anything like that, but it's actually really good to determine. We use it for DUIs, murder investigations, egg assaults, and stuff like that. We use that to determine what person could be under the influence of. You guys do that regularly? You follow DREs for stuff? Major crimes?
Yeah, we can. Yeah,
You can do, yeah. Okay. I'm also a field training officer. I'm also one of the drone pilots. A little bit more about Nico. He is trained on 6 odors: marijuana, methamphetamine, cocaine, psilocybin, shrooms, ecstasy, and marijuana. There's 6. I don't know if I said them all or not, but all their analogs, bases, and derivatives. To put it into terms, he's not trained on the detection of the drugs themselves, but the drug odors. Okay, so you might smell marijuana in a room, but the marijuana might not be in there. Somebody might smoke it. The dog will still smell that the same way. Okay, so I might smell marijuana in a room, search it, don't find nothing. The dog acts the same way, but with all those other drugs. Okay. The training is 6 weeks long. It's either in Rapid City or Sioux Falls, hosted by the troopers. It's modular base. First 2 weeks were basically just playing fetch. We take like PVC tubes, put a bunch of holes in it, and we put the trained odors inside the tubes. And then we just play fetch. They start to associate those odors with their play. Okay. So he recognizes that odor as being fun, play. And then we start putting the drugs out for them to find. Then we throw in toys behind them, make it look like the rabbit pops out of the hole. Okay. So I get paid with money, he gets paid with toys. Okay. That's how they work. Okay. That's the training in a nutshell. He lives with me, he works with me. I can't get rid of him. If I go on vacation, he comes with me. So at home life is boring, work life is fun. We only train when we're at work and I'm in uniform. That's how we keep him going. So he knows the sound of my engine and the sound of my doors unlocking, and then he goes like he's crazy. Okay. Like I said, he acts like he's 2. He's really 9 years old. Okay. So I'm going to teach you about some basic canine first aid that I've been taught on and some of my experiences. I am not a vet tech or a vet. I have called on my ambulance crews in the middle of the night to help me out with some injuries, basic stuff to get me through to where I can get to the vet in the morning.
There you go.
South Dakota has its own approved training for the K-9 teams. So the certification is 14 fines. You have to do a recert every year. There's 7 scenarios with a minimum of 3 diversions, 1 including has to be cash. Okay. So 3 in residences, so it's got to be a bathroom, a living room, and a bedroom. 2 packages, 2 storage lockers, 1 fine in a dark room. Well, 2 fines in a dark room, 2 fines in a warehouse, and 2 fines in a barn stall, and 1 in a storage. Okay. And to proof the dogs off of diversions, we do currency, dog food, baking powder, gloves, bags. We've done baby powder. Anything and everything that's mixed with drugs. We use those.
You do your recertification here, or do you take it somewhere?
There's 3 places we can do certifications. One's held in the fall, one's in the summer, and then one's in the spring. I go to Rapid in the spring. I got mine in April. Our other K-9 handler, he does his in Sioux Falls in the fall. And then the summer one's in Mitchell. The troopers have what's called their judges. They're our evaluators. We certify as a team. I get graded and the dog gets graded. I get graded on handler skills. The dog gets graded on indication and searching. Okay. This last year, both of our teams actually had the best scores we've ever had. In terms of grading, it's 1 to 6, 4 or less is better. I think Dex had a 2.2 and I had a 2.7, which is phenomenal. You don't hit in the 2s.
Several different agencies at the same time. Then?
Yep, I will be, when I go to Rapid, I will be with 3 or 4 troopers, the Rapid City Squad and Mobridge, Corson County probably. That's usually our group out there. A couple of tribals. With the Rapid City dogs, that brings me up to that. Is there what's called a dual purpose dog? They find narcotics, but they're also patrol dogs, which are bite and apprehension. They're called bark and detain dogs. If you ever have an opportunity to watch that, I encourage you to do it. That is some of the funnest things ever. I also hop in the bite suit. That's fun. Watching a dog come at you at 30 miles an hour to bite you.
Oh, no.
Sit there going. Okay, it's fun. That's a completely different beast than patrol dog aspect. South Dakota is the strictest state in the United States for dog training. We have the toughest standards ever. If you can pass our certification, you can pass any state. Okay. Like with the patrol dog stuff, it's called bark and detain. So if a guy's running and you send the dog out, the dog will bite, will hold you. But if all of a sudden I stop and he hasn't stopped and I go like this, that dog is not to bite you. It's supposed to stop right here and bark it. Then if you try to run again, then the dog will. That's how specific and strict their training is. Okay, so I, as the handler, is to ensure that the dog stays safe. So every deployment on a car, residence, schools, I'm supposed to do a quick walkthrough to make sure there's no hazards. Schools and buildings, I'm not too worried about, but it's cars because there's always glass or other road objects that are out there that can pop a tire. Can definitely hurt a dog's pad. So I'm always looking for broken glass. Paw cuts are devastating. If you cut a pad on a dog, that dog is out for weeks. Okay. They are resilient and they're built to withstand these things, but there's things out there that the dog can't fix. So basically, basic first aid is wash, inspect, remove debris, peroxide ointment, and bandage. Again, temporary until you get to the vehicles. This is ones I've had experience on where I've had to have our medic crews help me out. Dogs are trained to go to source. So when we're doing dog sniffs, and I think Mark can testify, most of these cars that we're dealing with are not the best of cars. They're rust buckets. Basically.
POS.
Thank you. Okay, so there's a lot of rust, a lot of sharp things on them. Dogs are trained to go to source. So they're going to put their nose as close to that source as they can. So they will literally stick their nose up into holes underneath cars, everything like that. So their nose is going up. Then when they pull it back out to do their indication, they're going to rub it up against the metal and cut their nose. I've had bad cuts on noses. Nico sheared off his eyebrow a couple of times now. Trying to get him to sit still so I can help flip that first aid on that is a challenge. I put him in a headlock and a leg lock. With Nelson helped me out. I'm sitting there going, just. So that's the challenge we're dealing with. These dogs are just so intense on finding their toy. They don't care what they do to themselves. Okay, they're known as what we call as hard dogs. He'll keep working. I've had him bleeding from his nose. Ice, snow, and dry air. Musher's secret ointment for dry, cracked paws. We start getting to that time of the year where the ice or the snow gets really hard. It's almost like glass. The dog's running on that. They're going to start cutting their paws, tearing up their legs. Start getting really dry. Got Musher's secret. You have to bandage them up. We do have booties for the dogs too. I don't like using them. They're not natural for them. Heat, concrete, and chemicals. Treat as a chemical burn. Keep moist until you see your bed. Nico has fortunately not had to have any burnt paws, but we have seen it. And the other thing too is needles. We are certified on doing vehicle interiors where needles could be tucked into seats where we can't see them. Don't get punctured by needles. It sucks. I've been poked. Fortunately, we've never had a dog get poked by one either. Again, their nose is going to go to source. So if there's one in a seat cushion or something like that, they're going to get punctured in there. So just treat it as a puncture. So overdose dangers. Like humans, dogs can overdose on drugs. Police working dogs are more susceptible to overdose because they are, of course, they're nasally. Okay. As they are actively using their nose, treat a canine overdose kind of like a human's. Narcan works on dogs. I have Narcan on me at all times. This is stuff I get from the ambulance crews. You can inject it straight into them, or you can put it up their nose. The human stuff works. Yeah, it's just a quick reversal until you get to the vet. Our vet does keep some Narcan on. So, if a dog has ingested some other toxins or drugs and is still conscious, you can give them hydrogen peroxide to induce vomiting. I've had to do this to my house dog. Put them in a bathtub or have them in the backyard because it gets the gimmicks. Yeah. My little Italian Greyhound grew up 6-7 times after I gave her milk, after she got some chocolate. Almost all handlers are going to have peroxide in the back of their car. I have like 2 full medical kits for canines in my car. Okay, this is one where EMS needs to be aware of too. As a handler down, if anytime a handler becomes incapacitated and the dog is out, the dog is going to instinctively protect it. Okay. There have been times, and I don't think it's been in the state, unless you've heard about it, where a dog had to be shot with a handler down. Okay. The dogs will protect the package. They will hover right over them and they will not let anybody near them. It's best if it's not a critical injury to try to get another handler or family member to the scene to try to get the dog away. Some guys keep like sleeves in the back of their cars. You can do long gloves, something like that, because the dog's gonna bite you. Hands down. Nico, if somebody's assaulting me, 100% will lay him. He's not a bite dog, but he will 100% grab the guy by the neck if I'm being assaulted by him. So I trust my dog, and I know he would do that. Last thing we want to do is to shoot a $6,500 dog or tase them, because if you tase them, it's hard to fix it. It's hard to retrain them. They're not going to work because they take that as a negative reinforcement. So just be cautious of that. You know, the handler can talk to you, listen to what the handler is telling you to do. So police working dogs are also hard, tough animals. They are typically do not like to be messed with for injuries. So you'll need muzzles. You need to do muzzles, headlocks, or other maneuvers need to be done to ensure the medics or the canine are not harmed. Sorry, I did this too fast. Listen to the handler. All handlers should have muzzles in their first aid kit. Okay. I always have 2 muzzles. I have one on my bag that I bring in and out every day, and then there's like 2 in my first aid kit. The vet, always listen to what the vet or the vet tech says. They always, if you need to have dogs, they say, let us control the animal. let them control the animal, let us control the animal if we can. To stop the bleeding, dogs cannot be given transfusions very easily. It's hard to get blood that matches. Only a few dogs that can do that. Greyhounds, I think, are one. So you gotta use vet starch. I have a bag of that on hand in my office. The temporary fluid replacement is not a substitute for red blood cells or plasma. Our vet has some on hand for us as well. Best way to stop the bleeding is pressure, pressure, pressure until you can get to the vet. Heat stroke, they will work until they're told to stop. Nico, his heart will explode until I tell him. He'll just keep going. I always tell this, remember a canine is using his nose all the time and it's sniffing constantly. A 15 to 20 minute sniff, so like a school sniff, it's like running a marathon. Okay. All they're doing is trying to find their toy, I'm going to find it. He's moving 10 miles an hour, 15 miles an hour, just sniffing. So after a school sniff, he's done for the day. This is the big one. Gastric dilation volvus, bloat or twisted stomach. This is an emergency, and emergency surgery is needed to correct it. Okay. It's basically where the stomach flips. There's no cause is not exactly known. For safety reasons, we think it's involving the gases within the stomach. So we don't. So if I feed Nico, I'm not allowed to deploy for 90 minutes, and I'm not allowed to have a deployment 90 minutes before to prevent the stomach from flipping. There is a surgery that you can do to avoid it. There is an emergency procedure to get the gas out of the stomach. Yeah, I'm not a vet, only been shown it. Is you take a needle and you put it through the back two ribs to get the air, get the gas out. Okay. It's about a 60% mortality rate. We've had a few dogs in the last 5 years die in the state for this. So, affects deep-chested dogs such as Great Danes, German Shepherds, Saint Bernards, Malinois, and Dutch Shepherds. Excellent place to go to if you ever have a medical emergency for any dog. It's vettriage.com. You can do televet with them 24 hours a day, and it's free for police dogs and military. So, you have a canine handler in your area that needs assistance and they're not sure exactly what's going on, you can be on the telemedicine. You guys have the gear there. So vet will tell you what you need to do. Again, until you get to it. I went through really fast, guys, but you guys are the medics. So questions, I'm here. Okay.
You cover any of that? I'm FEMA trained for taking care of working dogs. Yeah. Working dogs that I've used to take care of or trained to take care of or search and rescue them. They have the same work ethic. They're, instead of looking for their toys, they're looking for human toys. Things like that. Same injuries, same things. Only difference is Aberdeen Fire Rescue's med specs part of the task force. We can start IVs, we can give the medications, we can do the minor surgeries and things like that. Not minor surgeries, minor stitches, just to get them stabilized, if you will, to the animal can get them to. When a FEMA task force deploys, vets deploy with the FEMA task force. Now, South Dakota is not a FEMA task force, we're a state asset. So we do not have vets that will deploy, but we've got vets on speed dial if needed.
I got every vet on speed dial myself.
Does your veterinarian say they have some sort of special training to handle your dog, or is it just a regular veterinarian?
Regular vet. She familiars. We were going to Doc Cooper out east, and he retired, but he brought in Amber Zomke, and she learned how to deal with Malinois and really check. So she knows what she's doing. I trust her with the Malinois breed. So it's just like a German Shepherd. So, but I trust her explicitly.
How do they find those personalities and dispositions?
So that's why they're a little older when they come overseas. Typically, you're not going to see a dog from Europe that's under 18 months old. Usually, like the patrol dogs I was talking about, like rapid, they're usually 3 when you get them. So that way you start seeing the traits. We do select testing. We throw PVC pipes in different scenarios. We watch how they're searching, how they're trying to react to get to their toy. You know, are they vicious? Are they social? I mean, there's so much testing and stuff we're looking for. We're looking for genetic traits and character.
So your training is pretty extensive.
Yeah, I don't do any of the select testing. I'm not an expert in that. I trust the troopers that I know that do that. Yeah, they know what they're looking for. So, and if we get dogs from Europe, because Europeans have hundreds of more years of dog experience than the Americans do, because America is a relatively newer country than Europe. We're getting the European reject. We're getting the dogs they don't want for some whatever reason. I don't know why my dog was defective. He's phenomenal. But yeah. So my dog is off the chart on search drive, off the chart on play and retrieve. That's what we're looking for. Search, prey, retrieve. I can throw a ball all day. They'll go all day.
Do you have a specific shift that you work, or are you, I mean, there's 2 of you, so one of you is probably on call all the time, I suppose.
We're always on call. Yep. Yep. I work day shift now. The other one works nights. So, but the way it works, we can bid for shifts. So technically we both could be on days. But we're the only 2 dog handlers here. There's one in Webster, 2 over in the Mobridge area. One in Huron. There's one in Watertown. No, 2 Watertown.
When we call for dogs, we do that too at times. Even though I'm major crimes, my partner is the narcotics guy. But like we talked about earlier, we're a team, so we go out together. We use Barset all the time, so sometimes we can plan operations out for DCI. We don't see laughs, you know. We try to work during the day, if possible, not a lie, but we know
3 in the morning. Yeah, that's middle of the day.
it happens. It happens. You know, we work things a little bit differently than traffic guys, so it isn't usually a right here, right now. We know if there's this load coming. Sometimes we may be using tracking equipment to track them. And then we just send out these guys. They go do their thing, and then we mop up afterwards. So when he's talking about his dog, it's phenomenal. Seen it work. I've had to do a lot of paperwork after he's worked. He does good, and the other one at Webster is really good too. That's the main 2 that we use.
It's amazing with the difference too. The dog out in Webster with Brandon Miller, his name Murph. I've had to take Nico to the kennel over at Northern Plains, and they go, okay, how do we have to handle him? Because we have another dog over here, Murph. We're not allowed to approach him. We're not allowed to leave bulls or anything. I'm like, my dog's social. Anybody can come up and pet him. He don't care.
Murph is insane.
Murph's crazy. He needs Ritalin.
He does. But he's good.
He's very good at what he does.
Has ADHD.
Yeah. That's the way the dogs, some dogs are different. Both of our dogs are very social. Dex is kind of like I don't know how to describe it. The dumb school child. Yeah. Very good at what he does. He actually, when we're looking at dogs for training, we actually want the ones that are not smart. My dog is very smart, so it makes it harder to train. So you want the ones that's easy to program. You walk him in here, find the find, walk him out, and then you walk him back in. He goes, "Oh, I've never been in here before." You just keep doing that. Yeah, that's how you want that dog. My dog is like, "Oh, it's over here. I've already found it once." So run right back to it.
Murph doesn't slow down enough to realize that if you were, they're really
really excellent. You know, like during his operations, they call, you know, they have us out, they'll have the troopers out, we'll try to do, again, it's DCI, they don't do traffic stuff. We do. So we'll try to find the traffic stops. So ideally, you know, for legal reasons, we try to have somebody else do the stop, and then I just come up and run my dog around the stop, during the stop. We already know that potentially is open and car. So there's a case out there, it's called, we call it Rodriguez. So I cannot extend a traffic stop to perform a dog sniff unless there's reasonable articulable suspicion to believe that there is illegal contraband within that vehicle. Okay?
Does the officer that pulled them over make that decision?
Yes. Yep. Yep. It is the facts given at the time to determine if there is reason to believe the crime's afoot.
Easy way to say it, there's usually a plan.
Yeah.
You know, there's a plan, there's choke points, there's people in place, and there's a chase vehicle. On major crimes, a lot of times the chaser is me. So I sit back and watch everybody else have fun and then help clean up afterwards. But there, yeah, Rodriguez case is the main reason for that. So somebody goes out, stops the car, Farstead comes up, does his job. They affect the arrest. Not that DCI doesn't like to arrest people, but just for integrity of the case, sometimes it's a little bit easier. Then we come up afterwards, and we'll build a case after that. We've had RICO cases that we've done throughout the state where we can put historical weight on people, not just the weight that you find in the car. So instead of, you know, whether the last one was a quarter pound, the quarter pound that we find, we can come back later and stick 5 more pounds on it. State statute wise, it doesn't matter, but we start moving into federal crimes and with the federal law that really makes a big difference in sentencing guidelines. So,
And along that line, in 2022, my first appointment, we got, I think it was a quarter pound, and then we had a bunch of fentanyl pills. And they liked that guy down to a case down in Sioux Falls where we had 20 pounds.
oh yeah.
So
It's true, you guys are sneaky.
We look dumb, it's just a disguise.
it is. It is. The other legal avenue I really have to battle is marijuana. Okay, our dogs are trained on marijuana. You're starting to see more and more dogs not be trained on marijuana due to the medical stuff now. It doesn't, how do I want to put it? It doesn't affect my dog. I just have to ask a few more questions and do a few hurdles before I can eliminate medical marijuana from the car. A couple of questions I just have to ask. So there's not too many medical marijuana cards in town. I know they're starting to get more and more, but unfortunately, you're seeing more dogs now just not being trained on marijuana, which is unfortunate. You know, especially with like school stuff, because you can't have marijuana in the school unless it's distributed, dispensed by a nurse or the caregiver. So,
Dogs trained on 6 different odors. So is the alert the same on all of them, or does he alert for meth, or does he alert for marijuana? Are there different alerts?
So that's a good question. There's a difference with our training program. The alert is the untrained behavior. Okay, so an alert can vary. Doesn't vary based off substance. Nico, since he goes 100 miles an hour, it's the swift head check, the body change, and then his tail will stiffen and still wag. And then he actually does very methodical sniffing, pinpointing with his nose, and his ears will fold. That's the alert. And a profound alert will give me probable cause to search, but the indication, we actually do the indication, which is the trained behavior. He will sit or lay down. Also, standing stare or standing point is also acceptable. And the reason why we can do those, because it also depends on the environment. So if it's a low find, he's probably going to lay down because he's going to stare and look at the hole in the ground, basically is what he's looking at the rabbit hole. In a car door, he's typically going to sit because it's right in the center of the door seams usually where he's going to find it. Or if it's underneath the car in a stash box, he'll go actually lay underneath the car. I've had that. I've had him crawl underneath the center of the car to go from the passenger side to the driver's side. Yeah, he don't care. He just wants to find his toy. I've actually had him hop on a hood and indicate lay on the hood, looking down into the cowling of the windshield. So the indication is what gets me into. It's all environmental based. So I've had him hop up kitchen counters and sit and stare at the counter.
Like if you're looking for just that.
based off the indication, I don't know what he found. It's what one of his trained owners or the analogs basically through it. And I say that because he's trained on heroin, but he might hit on a hydrocodone pill because it's an opioid base. Okay. Yeah.
Just gonna go on the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. What's that?
Is that type of breed of dog, if you can't have dogs in the US?
Oh, you can. There's dogs that are in from the US that are just as fine. It's all depends on bloodlines, you know. The Europeans have pretty much genetically or have bred out all the genetic problems, you know, because they've had hundreds of years more to do that. You know, like the hip dysplasia, you're not going to find hip dysplasia in a European dog. It's pretty rare.
There's a lot of dog breeders around the small dog.
So like when we got Nico, it was $6,500 to get him, to get a dog like that now, a single purpose out of Europe, 10 grand. So you pay for it, but you're gonna get a long life out of them. Most of the dogs, what's that?
They're well treated.
Well, yeah, I mean, when they come from Europe, there's no training. We train them here. They're green dogs. I was a green dog, he was a green dog, I was a green handler. So,
Big difference is it's almost like insurance, because you're paying that money pretty much for the bloodline. So like you was talking about hip dysplasia, I had a buddy that had a dog, great dog. I mean, he did good work. Hip dysplasia comes and he's done. And now he's just a really expensive house dog, you know, so you get what you pay for. The more you pay, generally, the more use you get out of it. Because it is tough on them, especially when we talk about jumping on the hoods, jumping on the counters. Like it's, I mean, same thing as if we were to start jumping on hoods of cars and counters and stuff, we're not probably gonna fare too well in the future, you know.
I'd like to see that though, Mark. I'd really like to see
Very
that.
low countertops, usually the case. Kitchen, you know, but.
That's Caden's job, running around on the hoods of cars, right?
Cadence are run. You can see him usually like that.
young guy.
One other quick point I wanted to make as far as the other working dogs that you could run across, but we talked about the rescue dogs and Officer Barstead talking about, and Mark talking about the narcotics type dogs, is we also have one arson dog or accelerant detection dog in the state as well, that one of Mark's counterparts runs that program. Brandon Neitzer out of Huron, and we have that dog on a lot of fire scenes. So that might be another one that you run across. Those dogs are slightly different than Officer Barstead's dogs. Brandon's dog is he's a big lab, and he's probably the most laid back dog you're ever going to find. There's two different avenues there where Brandon's dog, when he has to work every day to get fed, he has to go out and smell different accelerants and things like that. And he's not, it's more, I don't want to say anything online here, but it's just his work. It's his deal. It's not more the game, and they're just trained a little bit differently. But you could also run into that where you may get called, it's like Officer Barstead was saying, because those dogs, the accelerant canines, they're wandering around in a burned out building, burned out structure, so they could get injured as well. And Brandon's dog, his vet is at the University of Minnesota. So it's just the way the ATF, it's an ATF trained dog, comes through their program. So
It's not a state dog, he's a federal dog.
Yep.
It's just the handler, will be the handler forever. Federal government.
And like Officer Barstead mentioned as well, with how that dog's with him all the time, Brandon's is similar. When Brandon travels, that dog is actually an ATF agent. That dog's got a badge. That dog does not get, it gets shipped in his kennel when he flies. He's sitting in a seat. So, you know, those are some of the amazing things with these working dogs, is they are agents, they are officers, they're an extension of those agents and officers. So it's really awesome
There
that
are
we
also
have.
bomb dogs as well too in the state. There's that one West River, they've been here in Aberdeen. They kind of operate the same way. You see that dog sit, run.
Yeah, it's fun when we watch Barsted's dog work, right? When we watch his dog work, we're like, ooh, 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 there it is, and he's there.
Yep.
You know, and you watch, I can't remember his name, but I mean, he looks like he's straight out of the Marine Corps. Dale, there you go. You see that dog start to work and your butt just puckers a little bit, you know?
Those dogs are trained to where their certification is even more intense. They can't touch a thing. They can't, their tail can't touch a box, their nose can't touch anything. Well, you don't want them to touch something because it might go boom. It might go boom. So, I mean, they're always at the Capitol sniffing during this time of the year.
Sessions in session, or if a presidential candidate or something comes in, Dale will go out.
Yeah, Mike Dale is one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet, but the most intense guy with his dog too. And,
He just looks intense, period, but he is very.
very nice guy. And he'll do dignitaries when they come into town. One time they had some Israeli ambassador in the state, and they wanted to see how reliable his dog was. So they actually took some bomb parts and hit it on a car, and they didn't tell him about it. And the dog indicated, and he's like, oh crap. Then he just walked up and said, oh, we were just proofing your dog. Move him on. Yep. They wanted to see how good his dog was. They do that stuff to us all the time. Yeah. So the judges can be tricky like that. And his dog is, in addition to being a bomb dog, is a protection dog too. So that dog will bite and chase.
You don't have to.
Yeah. Yeah, Sadie? Yeah, Sadie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's Sadie. Yeah. She's actually a very nice dog. But yeah, don't
So we got maybe a few minutes left. You're gonna do a demo too,
Yep,
right?
I will go get Nico.
Okay, and we'll maybe just talk for just a couple minutes while Officer Barset gets his dog. Mark, you're just gonna kind of give an update. I know you were here last year talking drugs, but as far as what are you guys seeing?
So we're still seeing the same like prevalence of methamphetamine in the area. Lots and lots of meth. You know, I think last year we talked a little bit about fentanyl. It's still here. And the crazy thing that I just had a conversation with the prosecutor on is, you know, do we see a lot of fentanyl in Aberdeen? You know, no, we don't. Have we? Here, I'll sit closer, or I can just not sit on my butt. So we do see fentanyl here, not as much as in other areas. It's kind of weird how those trends work. But basically it's kind of like connections. So as soon as one person where they have a whole lot of fentanyl makes a good connection here, before you know it, it's here, it's prevalent, it's big. And then, you know, you get that market. You know, it's almost like really good beef. You know that one butcher, and all of a sudden, you know, your buddy finds out that that's where you get your meat from. That's where he's going to go to because it's just that good. So we do find it. It's just not as much. If you watched the news just recently, they did pull pounds and pounds of fentanyl up in Roberts County. Was that coming here? We don't know. Or portions of it, you know, we don't know. But it is around and we do see it. So mainly just like we talked about last year, pressed M30 pills is how we see it most of the time.
I got a question. I know up in northeast Minnesota, they had like narcotin resistance. Have you heard anything like that in South Dakota?
No, I've heard it's probably just a different type of synthetic that they use. I don't know. You know, you still hear about fentanyl laced in with a little bit of marijuana here and there, not in this area, just throughout the country. But like I said, it's one connection away and then we have it here, so.
It's really given therapeutic fentanyl legal legislation. And a lot of the older people who touch fentanyl for pain management, they freak out like it's the China synthetic stuff. And it's not a disservice actually to really good pain management.
Oh, absolutely. 100% correct. Yes.
And I have seen the car fentanyl in town. I've actually held it in my hands, unfortunately. So it is here.
Yeah, it's here, but
Car fentanyl is way worse.
cartel fentanyl. We're talking about.
See the head check, all of a sudden goes back, that was the alert. Now he's supposed to just stare at his toy or stare at. And I speak to him in Dutch too. Most of his commands are in Dutch or German. The quickest deployment I had on a car, I think, was 4 seconds. We literally ran up and he stepped head check and went dunk. I'm like, I think it was only 4. I think it was 4 ounces of meth in it. Was it last summer we got that pound up at Groton?
Yeah,
He had that one pretty quick.
that was really fast.
It also helped the guy's window was broken, so. It actually, a windows being down in a car is actually a hindrance because the odor is just pouring out. I'd rather have it more controlled coming out the seams. You know, it's like being in a movie theater, you just smell nothing but popcorn and it's everywhere. I would rather have it more controlled coming out the seams. Oh, are you making a mess? Thus. All he's focused is on his toys, so.
All right, awesome.
I'll be back.
Nice smells food.
So that's kind of what we're talking about when we talk about Nico versus Murph. Like, he's laid back. Murph, Brandon, his handler, is a bigger man than Barstead, and there's a reason for that. He needs to be. So, and kind of when he's talking about, you know, in the winter on ice too, because they get really excited, they can get hurt, but sometimes it's just kind of fun to watch them pull them guys around. Makes us happy. That's a risk we're willing to take some days now, but you know, the handlers are usually really good with that. And sometimes dogs too, you know, if you can show that you're trying to help, maybe they'll let you. When we talk about those dual purpose dogs, that's a no-go for me. Like I'll, like when I was an EMT, we did have dual purpose dogs in the area. Like somebody else has to come or we have to secure the dog before I'll treat, because they'll tear you up.
That's not a walk. That's for anybody who's wondering, there's 15 grams of heroin in the bag. You guys want to see what heroin looks like?
You see a guy when he pulls your.
The 32 pounds of gear doesn't help either.
You guys got any other questions for these guys? Somebody mentioned it, when we mentioned, Officer Barr said mentioned carfentanil. Somebody said, what is that?
Yeah, what is carfentanil?
Carfentanil is basically an elephant tranquilizer. It's a synthetic opiate. So fentanyl is what, 1,000 times more potent than morphine. Carfentanil is 10,000 times more potent than morphine. Oh yeah. Well, I was wearing gloves. I don't ever search without wearing gloves. Always wear gloves. So yeah, that mix was heroin, fentanyl, and carfentanil. Yeah. So
If you were to be hurt, your dog said before, 100% protecting you.
Yep.
So they call your wife, would your wife be able to
Yes.
handle the dog and take
Yep.
the dog? And you guys can help you.
yes, ideally, anybody. Nico's one that will, whoever's holding the leash is in control. You just got to be able to get to the leash, get the leash on. But yes, yeah, yeah. No, he would listen to my wife.
Your wife can come in and say, hey, you go here.
Yep, yep.
And you be able to take care of the dog.
Yep. And if you presented him a bite sleeve, he'd bite it. We're not supposed to do that, but he would. The bosses don't like me doing that. We don't want to bite dog.
And could your kids handle it too, or?
Oh yeah, At home, he's actually a really good dog at home. He lives outside most of the time, but we're slowly integrating him into the house because we know retirement's probably coming up in the next year or two. So, yeah, he roams the backyard. It's got a kennel, does well with my 2 house dogs. Thinks my full-size greyhound's crazy. So.
What kind of treat?
Oh, that was just PVC or PEX tubing. His toys can be rope, PEX tubing, cloth. He loves fire hose. So, yeah. Thanks to the firefighters for giving me that fire hose. So, yeah, anything and everything. Usually his toys will smell like an odor too. We'll just put them in a box with the drugs, and so then the toys smell like the drugs too. It's trying to outthink a 2-year-old that's really smart. That's basically what we do. They catch on to the gag. They do their little things to try to beat mom and dad, and we got to try to outsmart them.
Question for you. Did you have to hire a certified trainer to train you and him?
No, our trainer is actually, the South Dakota Highway Patrol has a couple of judges. They are allowed to train us in our dog camps for 6 weeks. Captain Oxner, Sergeant Lord, Brian Sweats, who's a retired trooper but can still do it. And then there's one, John Lawrence, Sioux Falls PD is also the trainer. So they train us. Our training is South Dakota specific. So I can't go to another state and become certified here. I have to be trained and certified within the boundaries of South Dakota.
That was it for that one so far.
Any other questions from online?
We're here, ask away.
If requested, DCI, EPD, whatever, if requested, could you go out of state?
To deploy the dog?
Yes.
We would not go that far. What we would do if, let's say, there's some cases that we run that lots of times just go into Minnesota. So what we do is we contact the BCA, which is the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. It's kind of our counterpart on the other side of the border, and then they bring in their dogs. So just cleaner.
Yep.
For courtroom reasons, and then they get to cut the paperwork on it versus us. So same thing if it's federal, if the DEA comes around working and they need something, we use the dogs within the boundaries of the state that you're actually going to be working.
We have had chases going to North Dakota. The first thing they told us, do not deploy your dogs in North Dakota. And I think that was where Mike Dale, one of the bomb apprehension dogs, was, do not deploy in North Dakota. Tribal, I think we're still okay. We've never really gotten a clean answer on that because we are within the border, but
yeah, we just try not to
try
do
not
that.
to.
Lots of times they have their own dogs, which is, I know it sounds weird, but they have their own dogs. Most of them train with the same guys, but you got to also treat it as somewhat as a sovereign nation as well. So they have the jurisdiction, they have the authority where once we cross into tribal boundaries, we may not, depending on which tribes they are and what relations we may have. It's sometimes easier just to have them guys come down. There isn't a tribe that we don't work well with. So
one of my best friends, Mike Barlick, he works Corson County, which is all tribal. And as bad as it sounds, it all depends on the ethnicity too. I mean, it deals with.
I was going to go that far, but yeah, it depends if you're
native or
if you're non-native on native land.
Yeah.
It's just
How the
different.
rules are.
A couple more came in online. First one, does your dog stay with you after he or she retires?
I have to buy the dog for $1 or from the keep me. He is technically equipment. So my wife has told me I got to spend the $1. So.
And then one other one.
What is the biggest load you guys have found so far?
Comes from a deputy sheriff out of McPherson. So,
Oh,
How you doing, Allie? My biggest personally of me on my own, I don't have a dog, was 3/4 pound. My biggest since we've been here that I personally have been involved with was just over a pound. Other than that, when we talk about fentanyl, I think the most fentanyl pills I got out of a house, which was a drug endangered kid type of household, It was right around like 103 M30s, which is a lot. Personal use, of course. But that's probably my record.
I've had a pound of meth. That's my biggest in meth. And I recently had 9.5 pounds of marijuana in a package.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. I'm sorry, M30s is generally what we're seeing fentanyl being pressed in. So it's a blue little pill, and it's pressed. So almost just like a ibuprofen or something, and it just has M30 as a. Yeah, sweet Jesus, no. Yeah, you'll die.
So how does somebody have 30 of those in their house and not? How do they ingest it? Like, how do they take it? If they got it?
Well, you
If they
could-
die from what?
Well, you can snort it in small portions. You can ingest it in small portions. We're seeing a lot of smoke in it, which is kind of crazy. It just basically melted on a piece of tin foil, and then inhaled. But we've actually had users tell us, like, you got to be really careful when you do that because you can't inhale too much. We had a gentleman up in Sisseton area. He was injecting it, which I thought was pretty dang ballsy. So it just kind of depends on how they want to.
So if
And
you swallow one of those M30s or whatever, you die if you swallow the whole thing.
yeah, we would die.
And I'm a big advocate of Narcan. Anybody who's on an opiate should have Narcan in the house. But with now Narcan not being, or not having a prescription required now, it's actually, people have been increasing their ballsiness to do that. It's because, oh, I just got Narcan. I can just go. They want to keep chasing that high, I'll just be brought back by the Narcan. They see that out in Oregon and Washington. They got signs on cars going Narcan. I'm just sleeping. I mean, that's how prevalent it is out there. There's Narcan everybody else.
Couple more for you, Barstead.
Okay.
What type of protocols are in place if the dog gets his nose into open drugs like fentanyl? We'd Narcan the dog.
We'd Narcan right away and I'd be calling the emergency vet right away. I've actually been exposed to fentanyl powder on the seat. I'm a creator. Within my agency, I think there's 3 policies designed after me. So.
It's the Barstead manual.
Yes, yes. And one of them is loose powder. That one was kind of unique. The guy popped the bag as we were getting him out of the car and put it all over his seat. I touched it. Luckily, I wasn't sweating. I mean, if you touch it, you're not necessarily going to overdose. It's depending on if you're sweating, your pores are open and all that. And luckily, I was far enough away from my face where I didn't inhale it. But that was a mess because there was still some in his pocket. So once he got to the jail, then we had to monitor the jailers for several hours to make sure we had Narcan ready on the counters. So we get monitored. If you're exposed, especially going in through the lungs and the nose and stuff like that, it's going to be almost instantaneous.
And so where do you get it?
You can get pill presses and do it yourself.
You just make it?
Generally, yeah. I mean,
I'm so confused about it. Like,
generally the pills that we're seeing, when we call the DEA, we send stuff in, lots of times the makeup that's inside of the pill that can kind of try to locate some of where it's coming from. I would put 99% of that is coming from Mexico at some point in time.
Yeah.
In just pounds and pounds and pounds of boxes, and then
Yeah.
just gets distributed out. So the last guy that we just federally indicted in the Northeast, he was getting it from Minneapolis. Minneapolis was getting it straight from Fargo, but his connect was straight from Mexico, and he was, getting right around that 5,000-7,000 pills at a time.
In that case where we found the M30s in the car, we had it was a quarter pound, found 118 fentanyl pills. We had a stolen gun. That was all cartel linked. There was a stolen gun out of there from Atlanta. This guy was from California. So he was cartel linked. We put 20 some pounds on him.
Yeah, we love putting historical weight on people.
Oh, yeah.
It's a lot of work, but it's worth it.
Does your state's attorney handle all the prosecutions, or does it?
If it's stateside, if it's state, yes. If it's federal, then it goes to peer, right? Are they still doing it out of peer for federal cases?
It depends who you want to talk to.
Okay.
I got one going right now that's out of Sioux Falls, which I thought was weird. I think Caden's got one that's going down through here. So it's kind of whoever wants to take it. We're not TFOs. So when I mean TFOs, like I'm not on a task force, so I don't have federal credentials and I'm okay with that. But I just have to get somebody to take my case on the federal side to run it up. So we do have a task force down in Sioux Falls. This is why I did it mine that way. We do have an agent on that task force, so I can just go through her. Right now we have a vacancy in Pierre, so we can't do that, but we do have a trooper on the task force based out of Pierre. So, and it doesn't matter once it goes federal, because I mean, they all talk anyway. So just kind of like we do. So it goes pretty seamless.
So is that now one of the ones that your dog will sniff out?
Yeah, it's like an opiate tail.
We got one last one.
I think so.
I think we're good.
That was it.
All right. Thanks a lot, gentlemen. Really, really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Is there one known Sioux Falls?
No, Liz is
Yeah, it's black tar. If you want to come up and look at it.
basically technically out of Canton. So our federal task force one would be Kim Snyder.
Oh, okay.
It's got a very distinct odor. It's probably stronger than marijuana.
Tom, can you put that in front of the camera just so the folks online can see it? We're gonna put this, the cameras you got right up there.
Just looks like black tar. Melt it and then you can inject it.
Was that the stuff they, like, they go to school?
All right, folks online, that's a wrap. If you got a form to do, go ahead and do that. Otherwise, we are wrapped up. Thanks a lot for all you guys' attention and really great questions. And be looking for your certificates. If you're ALS, if you're BLS, be in your portal. Everything should be in your portal already, ready to go. So contact us if you need anything. But other than that, we are done and we'll see y'all next year. It'll be the same weekend. We just aren't 100% sure on the venue yet. But if you reference this same weekend next year, that'll be when we have our refresher next year. So go ahead and mark it on your calendar and we'll let you guys know a venue probably in about 6-8 months. So, all right, have a good rest of your weekend. Hopefully some of you get tomorrow off and get to recoup. So take care. Thanks, everybody.